What's up, Joe? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Sports 360. I'm Jeff Fannell, and I am back with my man, Rob Duran of Rob Duran Sports. Rob, what's up, man?
What is going on, man?
Man, you took the words right out my mouth. I was gonna channel my inner Marvin Gaye and just say, brother, brother, brother. It's been a long time, man. It's really been a long time, but I'm glad to be back, man. Be back after about 2 months. We've been away. Mostly my fault. Well, no, all my fault, but but we're back, man. To talk some sports, man. It's been a long time. It's been, we've been apart for a good part of the summer, so I can only think of some of the things that have gone by. NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, not Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics, right? There's been so many things that have gone on, but been an interesting time in sports, and you know, got to talk some baseball, and I want to start in talking about your New York Yankees, who since the last time we spoke, man, they're a different team, and you got to feel good about that.
Yeah, man. I think the last time we spoke, I was still throwing fits. I was
Yep.
upset. I wasn't watching games. I think I was towards the middle of my break with the Yankees still, and I'll tell you, I'm happy now. I'm very, very happy. They're on a 9-game winning streak, and they're playing some great baseball. They made some good trades, that much needed trades, I should say, and they just look like a whole different team. Their attitude, the way they look in the clubhouse, the way they look on the field, the way they're playing the actual game of baseball, completely different team. I'm here to tell you, Jeff, the break is over. I'm happy. We're happy.
Yeah, I mean, you were having, sort of a love-hate relationship with the Yankees for, I would say, almost the first half of the season, where you were like, I don't even know if I'm gonna watch them anymore, type of thing. And right now, when they got Rizzo and they got Gallo, um, they balanced out that lineup, in a way that was really needed. And I think it took pressure off of a lot of the other guys in the lineup. And they just been really playing well, man. I mean, they are right now looking scary, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and like you said, that balance in the lineup, Judge is doing much better. Giancarlo Stanton is playing. He's playing the outfield now, and he's also doing much better consistently at the plate, which is something that both those guys were having a little bit of trouble early on. More so Giancarlo than Judge, but man, I think the trade for Gallo was something that a lot of people expected. But I think when they traded for Rizzo, I didn't hear any rumors, nothing going on about that, and suddenly Yankees got Rizzo, who was actually a Red Sox target. So I think it's funny that that happened. But I think the trade for Rizzo is huge because this guy does everything. He's a great defender. He can hit leadoff if they need him to hit leadoff. He can hit in the middle of the lineup, top of the lineup, wherever you want to put him in the lineup. And he's a great clubhouse guy. Like people need to focus on that as well. The things he did in Chicago, all around as just a person and a player, I think that transcends past what he does on the field, and I think it's going to really benefit the Yankees in this playoff run.
Yeah, that last point I agree with 100% because Rizzo as a presence on the field. Like we don't see the clubhouse, but as you said, that's his reputation, right? Being a really strong presence
Yeah,
in the clubhouse. But you can also see it on the field, as the way he's almost like a calming influence on that infield and for the pitcher and everything else. You could see he just oozes leadership, you know.
yeah, big
Um,
time.
and he plays a fairly good first base, and he can hit, and he's won, right? He's won the World Series as a leader of the Chicago Cubs, and so you like all of that. And there's something else about him too. he just seems to have a New York swagger. You know what I'm saying? Like he
Yeah.
just has that. And it's not an over the top look at me type thing. It's just like he oozes confidence. You know what I mean? And but not in an off-putting way. And I think he fits New York because of that. You know what I mean? That this is a guy who maybe a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, but he's going to be the type of guy who will back it up. And I
Yeah.
think that element is something the Yankees could use as well.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because when they started showing the pictures of him with the pinstripes on social media, I was like, this guy just looks like he's a Yankee. Like he
Mm,
was always meant to be a Yankee type of person and
yeah.
type of player. So it's funny you say that.
Yeah. So that's been really positive for the Yankees. But you make a point about Rizzo. He that was unexpected. I mean, the Cubs went through a fire sale, right? I mean, talk
Yeah.
about three All Stars being traded, right? And Baez, Rizzo, and Chris Bryant going to the Giants. And we'll talk about Baez going to my beleaguered New York Mets because we're not going to give them a pass tonight. But we'll get to that in a second. But that was part of a really unprecedented trade deadline, right? I mean, Max Scherzer traded, and Rizzo, and Bryan, and Baez, and Trey Turner. I mean, you saw some all-star caliber players being dealt, and it was just never seen anything like that before, Rob.
Yeah, I think it was probably the best trade deadline I've ever witnessed or been a part of, whatever. One of the best ever, maybe the best ever. So many big names. I didn't expect, like a guy like Scherzer, you kind of saw that. Maybe they'll trade him, maybe they won't, maybe they'll hold on to him, sentimental value, stuff like that. But him going with Trey Turner, I didn't expect Trey Turner to get traded. I didn't see that. I didn't think that would happen. But there were a lot of big names, and it's kind of sad too when you see what Chicago had to do, the Cubs,
Yeah.
and getting rid of their core, the core that won that historic World Series. And we spoke about it before the season started. Is this the year the Cubs have to break up and kind of rebuild everything back? And it was almost inevitable. But then they started off the season so well, and people started saying, okay, wait a minute, maybe they can keep this together and build on this, and maybe they'll get somewhere. But then they started struggling, and you just kind of saw the writing on the wall. But yeah, man, the trade deadline, probably the best I've ever seen in my entire life. So it was definitely exciting.
Yeah, it was. For most teams, I think that we're making moves. The Dodgers, man, you're talking about the rich getting richer. Um, but obviously with the whole Trevor Bauer situation, the Dodgers needed to get another frontline pitcher. Look, they got Walker Bueller. You know, David Price is now in a starting rotation.
Yeah.
They just have an abundance of riches. But they went out and got Scherzer, and Scherzer seems to be fitting right in with that team, right? And that's kind of the thing, though. If you are a good player, you're going to fit in on a good team and make that team better, right? That's just how
Yeah.
it goes. And that's what we've seen. And so it was a very, very interesting trade deadline. But if we could segue to my New York Mets, because they went out and got Rich Hill. They made that trade shortly before the deadline. And then at the deadline picked up Javi Baez. And for me, I was kind of ambivalent about the pickup of Baez, even though the Mets' problem the whole year has been a lack of offense, right? Um, but I did, and then Baez has been hurt, but even before that, he seemed to me to be a feast of famine guy. And I don't think the Mets needed another player like that given their offensive struggles.
Yeah. And Javi Baez isn't, I think they kind of had to get him because they weren't doing anything big at the trade deadline. And it was like, okay, Mets, are you gonna make a move? Are you gonna run for this division? What's gonna happen? And I think they kind of had to make the move for Baez, who was probably going to get traded either way to somebody, at least right before the deadline. So I think the Mets getting him great for the Mets, great for Lindor. Him and Baez are best friends and all that. But when you talk about feast or famine with Baez, it's true. I think the kind of player he is, where he's very flashy, he does a lot of spectacular things, and I think that overshadows his deficiencies on offense. And it's a lot of strikeouts. It's a lot of, you'll get some home runs. Yeah, you'll get 20, 30, 35 home runs, but you're also going to get a lot of strikeouts, a lot of chasing after bad pitches and stuff like that. So, I mean, we'll see, if these guys get healthy and maybe try to make a run at that wild card, but it's going to be tough to even smell that division the way Atlanta's playing right now. And even Philly, they've kind of turned the corner a little bit here. So tough luck for your Mets, Jeff.
Yeah, but I mean, and they are my Mets. I'm not going to disown them or anything like that. But the thing is that even when they were in first place, they were a frustrating team to watch because night after night, day after day, they could not put together anything offensively, and so they were very, very hard to watch. And then their pitching, DeGrom goes down, and to me, they need to shut DeGrom down for the rest of the season. What's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He needs to be shut down for the rest of the season. But their pitching couldn't hold up. DeGrom had a variety of physical issues, and then Taiwan Walker all-star at the All-Star break, but probably pitching over his head. Stroman pitching fairly well, but um, they didn't have much else. And so when there was a lot of pressure put on the starting pitching. There's a lot of pressure put on the bullpen. They're playing close games, coming from behind repeatedly, and just not being able to get anything going offensively. And to me, it just caught up to them, caught up with them, and it's not a surprise, man. It's not a surprise that they are where they are. And kudos to the Braves for, after
Yeah.
losing Acuna Jr., to you know really hang in there for a while, and then they've now hit their stride. And right now, they have a pretty healthy lead on the division. I think they're like 4.5 games up on Philly, 7.5 on the Mets. So right now, it looks like that division's the Braves to lose.
Yeah, and when Acuna went down, I was worried, man, because he's the leader of that team, point blank. The best player on that team, maybe the best player in that division, period. And for him to go down and the team to stay afloat, and then look where they are now, that's huge, man.
Yeah, yeah. And so I look for the Braves to take that division.
Yeah,
The Phillies, you're right. They got on a little hot streak, um, and they took first place over from the Mets, and then they've kind of come back down to earth. I think Philly's a mediocre team. I do,
yeah,
and so I think they've come back down to level. But I think the Braves are going to be able to hold on to that division, and I see no reason for any reasonable Mets fan to believe that they will do anything but be what they've been for the first 4.5 months of the season, or 5.5 months of the season. You can't expect anything else. All of a sudden, what, they're going to become the 27 Yankees? I mean, I mean, they haven't hit all year. I don't think they're going to hit now. So to me, the Mets need to be thinking about next year. I really think that's where they are right now. What about out west, man? Are you surprised that San Francisco is continuing to hold off the Dodgers?
I am actually, man. And I know I picked the Giants to be really good in the first half, and I thought they would fall off in the second half because it's kind of been their MO the last few years. But they've held on, and they're pitching. And I know Gosman, who's probably their ace, has struggled over the last, I think, maybe like 5 to 7 starts. But they got guys like Logan Webb, who's coming up and doing great over his last few starts. But their pitching is really holding up. They got Chris Bryant, who hopefully he can continue to catapult that offense. But they're a team, man. I did not expect them to be there. Maybe if they could continue playing well after the first half, maybe sneak into like a wild card spot, the second wild card spot. But to continue to hold off the Dodgers this late into the season, I mean, we're going into September. and they're 2.5 up. It looks like in the West right now. That's impressive. And I know the Dodgers have had their injuries, but the Dodgers are stacked regardless. you know,
Yeah.
so I'm pretty impressed with the way San Francisco has played this whole year.
Yeah, you have to be. And you really do. You really have to be impressed by what they've been able to do. Um, but it's still very close, and obviously the Dodgers, are can overtake them. But here we are, man. Closing in on Labor Day, and San Francisco is still hanging on out there. One team that we haven't spoken about, because the Central, we talked about it earlier in the year that was going to probably not be a very good division. And if I've done anything right in baseball this year, I picked Milwaukee to come out of that division, and I think Milwaukee will come out of that
Yep.
division. And so they've really been playing well, and that's a division that the Central in both leagues not very competitive, with the White Sox running away in the American League, and Milwaukee with a healthy lead in in the National League, and then finally out west in the American League. Pretty tight between Houston and Oakland. Oakland continuing to hang around, about 3 games out right now, and so it could be interesting going down the stretch in terms of the West. Um, in the American League.
Yeah, and the trade for Starling Marte for Oakland, this guy is a baller, man. He does a lot of great things, and I think it's sometimes overlooked the trade, but the value he brings to a club, the guy's a great defender, great base runner, a great hitter. The guy, he's a 300 hitter. He can mash 20, 30 home runs. I think that was a great pickup for them, and I think it's going to help. Obviously, the loss of Liriano to the PEDs, that was big, but I think it's gonna be tight throughout. I think Houston ends up taking the division, but I think it'll be tight going down to the wire towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think so as well. And so, as we are getting close to Labor Day, right? Typically, we get into that discussion of whoever's in first place on Labor Day is going to win the division. I think that's more folklore than anything else. But when you do get to Labor Day, and this year Labor Day is what, like the 6th, I think, right? And so
Yeah,
it's
I believe so.
so we we're going to be really close to the end of the season by the time we get to Labor Day. Probably have like 3 weeks left. You know what I mean? Sometimes Labor Day is on the first or second, and you pretty much have the whole month of September still to play. But here we're going to have like 3 weeks once we hit Labor Day before we get to the end of the season. So you know it's getting close to really solidifying your spot. You know what I'm saying? If you want to try to make a run, or or really nail down your postseason positioning. And so it's going to be tight for a couple of teams over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, like you said, I think there's a few teams there who, like the White Sox, stuff like that, Milwaukee, they got it. But every other division, maybe Atlanta has their spot done with, but every other division is still pretty close. And it'll be interesting to see how that NL West plays out, because the Dodgers, I don't think they're going to give up. I think if the Giants slip up a little bit, they can lose that division. And then Tampa and the Yankees, they're both playing really well, and Tampa again is just somehow piecing things together and playing really great baseball.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about it. They've been in first place for a good chunk of the season, especially after the Red Sox started falling off. So it'll be very interesting to see the AL East, and then both divisions out west.
Yeah. Yeah. um Speaking about interesting to see, Rob, one of the things that I thought was really interesting and was captivating, really, in a lot of ways, was the Field of Dreams game between your Yankees and the White Sox. From my perspective, I thought that the idea was a good one, but I thought the execution was better. And many times that doesn't happen. Sometimes you have a good idea and the execution leaves a little bit to be desired. But I thought here it was a good idea and it was better execution. I thought as a television event, it was really well done. And I know a lot of people who were involved in bringing that um, event to pass, both in Major League Baseball and at the Players Association. And those who are on hand tell me that it was just as impressive in person. First of all, before we even get to the game itself, what did you think about the event, the Field of Dreams game?
I literally had chills for that opening ceremony when the game was about to start. Literal chills. And like you said, the way it was coming together, and obviously we missed it last year with COVID, but the way it was coming together, it gave me this sense of little kid excitement that I haven't felt in a long time for baseball. And then when it happened, it was even better. MLB not just nailed it, but they did it. It was to perfection. And that's something that we haven't said in a long time about Major League Baseball and the way they plan things and execute things, especially with all the rule changes and stuff they've had over the years. The way they did this, the execution of this, the everything to the detail was absolutely perfect. And I think it's something, I mean, they're already doing it next year. We want to see it next year. And it's just perfect, man. They did a phenomenal job. Everyone involved. The game itself, and I know we'll get into it in a little bit, but the game itself was just absolutely perfect for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. And the setting of it, everything was, building that stadium, um, and the backdrop of the movie set and the corn and everything else, man. It was like it really was something. And I would tell you, they've set the bar very high going
Yeah.
forward, and I don't know if they will ever top this one. Partly because it was the first, but also because, as we've been saying, it was so well done. And I don't know how you top it. And then there was the game itself, right? Which, sort of added to this whole movie, too good to be true scenery that we had, right? Then you had this game that was like out of Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? Where, you got it back and forth, and the Yankees take the lead with two 2-run home runs in the ninth inning, only to lose it in the bottom of the ninth on a walk-off home run by Tim Anderson. The game also itself added to the overall appeal of this event. What do you think about the game?
Listen, I know the Yankees lost the game, but the way they lost it was perfect. I would not have had it any other way considering everything you just said. The fact that it was a walk-off, and it was Tim Anderson, who we know has a lot of emotion for the game. He was excited for this game. You could kind of see him just like taking it all in, like pregame and all that stuff. So the fact that it was him who did it and the whole scenery, it was just perfect, man. I know the Yankees lost, and I shouldn't be saying that, but I didn't mind it. I really did not mind the Yankees losing that way.
Yeah, I mean, look, during the season, there are times when every team loses by a walk-off, right? So that happens, and so that's not unusual, and teams get over it. But I think here you get over it even the more because the event was
Yeah.
something that was just so special. You know what I mean? I think both teams could feel really, really good that they came out and they contributed to what is something that folks will be talking about for a long, long time. I think those who saw this, especially those who were there in person, but even those who watched by television, won't forget this event. It was really,
Yeah.
it was really, really well done. And then the ending was right out of Hollywood, with Tim Anderson and the walk off. So, And I was watching the game, and my wife was there. She's not a big baseball fan, and when Abreu hit the home run, I just said to her, "Into the corn," right? She said she laughed. She said, "Into the cornfield." I said, "No, into the corn." And then before they went to break, and they're showing Abreu's home run, Joe Buck says, "Into the corn." And I looked at my wife. I said, "He took that from me." But here's the thing. Every home run, I kept saying "into the corn." I said it 8 times that night. That was crazy, man. But but yeah, man, they were hitting it into the corn, and it was really special. I really enjoyed that. I really did.
Yeah, and it was one of the most watched baseball games in a very long time. So people were excited about this, man. MLB did a great job.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So yeah, man. So baseball is really, I think, it's not without its problems. We've gone through the sticky stuff, and that's kind of died down, right? It's sort of still
Yeah,
going on, but it's kind of unnoticeable right now, which is good, right? Nobody's talking about it anymore and all the rest of that stuff. We did get that suspension though. And here's the thing. I mean, Santiago got suspended for sticky stuff. I believed him when he said, "Hey, it's sweat and rosin," and then they upheld the penalty, which I thought was kind of odd. But then he got banged for PEDs. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, me.
yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what to think after that. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, but they've had that. Trevor Bauer continues to still be something that is not a very good story for him
No,
or for MLB. But you know, um, I do think that with the Field of Dreams game, and then the way the pennant races, at least right now, seem to be set up for September, I think baseball's in a good place with the game.
I definitely agree, man. I think we're in for a really good September, and it's gonna be a wild ride. It's gonna be fun, and I think baseball, like you said, with the Field of Dreams, I think they even the All Star game, they kind of
Yeah.
started some momentum because with
Yep.
Shohei Otani, who's an absolute star that doesn't get talked about enough somehow. I think that momentum has carried baseball a lot this season, and with having the fans and all that stuff back, and I think baseball's in a really good place this year, and I'm excited to see these pennant races and then the playoffs. I'm
Yeah.
excited, man, and I think a lot of people are feel the same way.
Yeah, I agree with that, and with good reason. So baseball is going well, man. Before we go, man, look, I, I have to tip my hat to the Milwaukee Bucks. And somebody said, "Brother, Milwaukee Bucks, that was like 3 years ago." Um, but we've been gone, man. But look, I've criticized the Bucks, but hey, man, the Bucks won the championship. Giannis started finally playing like the superstar that we all know that he is, and got to give those guys credit. And I didn't want to leave the shows because we've been gone for a while without acknowledging the Milwaukee Bucks because I've criticized them plenty of times, but I got to give them their due. They did a good job. They're world champions, and good for them. And good for them going forward. So I just had to say that. The other thing is, Rob, and we'll talk about this at another time, but I'm interested to get your quick thoughts on it, and that's this. I'm not quite sure how Westbrook's going to work out in LA.
Yeah, I was don't know how to react when I saw the trade. I wasn't sure if that was like a oh that's a good move or oh is that a good move? I don't know, man. I don't think
Listen,
I don't
LeBron
know.
LeBron can't play his little subtle Jedi mind tricks with Westbrook that he
No.
sometimes does with his teammates when he wants to get their attention. You know what I mean? When they're not playing well, and he says his little subtle things, little coy things, tweets something, says he tries that with Westbrook. I don't see that happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
see
think he's
LeBron
ever.
getting mad like he used to get mad at Mario Chalmers or some of those other guys when Westbrook does something crazy. Yeah, Westbrook could probably give him some. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah,
don't see that. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I don't, he's never played with a character like this, and Westbrook is a very strong character guy.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very, very interesting, man.
And he's a guy because of it, look, you can't be a triple double machine as he's
No,
been without having the ball in your hands constantly.
yeah,
How does that play out with a guy like LeBron, who is essentially the point guard, point forward, point center, whatever you want to call him? How does that play out? Right. Um, and I know, when Westbrook went to Houston, it was like, well, do they have enough balls, right, to go around, basketballs to go around?
yeah,
And here with LeBron, like, who's going to have the ball in his hands? Because
yep,
LeBron demands to have the ball in his hands, and rightly so, right? He makes his teammates better. But Westbrook also triple double machine, everything else. They're gonna have to figure that out.
yeah. And I don't think he's going to be getting triple doubles. Not with AD down there. Not with
No,
LeBron, who's basically, he puts up almost triple double numbers for his career.
right, right.
So
Uh, yeah. But we'll talk about that obviously as we get closer to the NBA season. But before then, we got a lot to go through. NFL season is going to be kicking off soon, so that's something else. My Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott is back, I think. They, there's something always going on with him this off season, right?
yeah, I just
But
hope he
it's
can stay healthy.
yeah, me too. But certainly it seems that gruesome ankle injury. He's back from that, but he's had some shoulder issues this preseason. But looking about my Cowboys to come back to shut up Stephen A. Smith this year. 'Cause he always dogging them out. But we got some football to go through. Got the World Series playoffs and World Series to go through, and then obviously we'll get to the NBA. But man, it's just been good to be back in the saddle, Rob, after so long to just have an opportunity to talk with you about a little bit, sports and a little baseball. It's been a long time, so it's all good.
Yeah, man, it's better late than never. But I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're talking, man. I miss this, and this is fun, man. I enjoy doing this.
Yeah, yeah. And now that things have kind of settled down, we'll get back into a regular routine. So look forward to coming back next week, man, and chopping it up some more, talking about some of the leading stories of the day, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, or maybe even hockey.
Ooh, look at that.
Nah. But anyway, we'll 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 touch on whatever it is that demands attention. But look forward to catching up with you next week, and we'll do it all again on another edition of Sports 360. Sounds like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, brother.